Philippians chapter 1, just looking again at verses 9 to 11. This is my prayer, says Paul to this young church. This is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best, and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. It's such a wonderful prayer for someone, isn't it? And sometimes our desire to enter into the spirit of that prayer leads us to seek new and exciting experiences of God. And if I turn on my TV and look at some channels, there are loads of people who want to encourage me in new and exciting experiences of God. And I don't want to downgrade any of them, ever. But, just speaking for myself, sometimes the desire for experience can lead me into a kind of roller coaster of emotions. You know, sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. And to seek for experience accentuates the spikes in the graph. Do you know what I mean? And I can myself get addicted to feelings, to the feelings themselves, to the point possibly of being left a little bit insecure, a little bit inadequate in myself when the feeling passes. So here, I think this is Paul's solution to that. If I become addicted to the adrenaline of feelings, then my feelings will change. But my feelings must be anchored to my knowledge. My head must be anchored into my heart, and vice versa. This is what you need, Paul says. My prayer that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. So Paul's not praying for warm and fuzzy, feel-good stuff, but that love should abound in knowledge and depth of insight. And so that knowledge here means knowledge of God, and the way that knowledge of God creates insight into the situations that come to us in our lives. The more you understand about God, the more time you spend with him, reading, listening, and the more you love him. And the more you love him, the more you understand of his feelings towards you. And that head combined with heart has implications for living. But to work out what it means, we need depth of insight. You see how thoroughly constructed this prayer is, how carefully thought out. We need to be discerning. I need to learn to think spiritually, to learn to think biblically. You know, like those bands that people wear saying, what would Jesus do? You know, I come to a situation, what would Jesus think about this situation? So that informs my prayers, and it changes my thinking patterns, and it suggests how I should act in a situation, so that I may be, in these words, I may be able to discern what is best, and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ. It's amazing how there's a kind of background, a backdrop to all that Paul says. It's until the day of Jesus Christ. It's very focused that one day history will be wrapped up, and one day we are going to come to the point where there is no other tomorrow, that we belong to God, that God created the world, that God sustains the world, that it all coheres in him, and one day that world will be wrapped up like an old garment. So Paul has that very much in view. He says you have to have the day of Jesus' return, no matter what it looks like. Don't get hung up on the details of it, just get hung up on the truth, the general truth. Jesus is coming back. Get ready. And that's how Paul presents this knowledge combined with love, so that you might be able to discern what is right, choosing what is right, being aware that this world is not all that there is, that this is just one part of what God has for us. And when Jesus returns, that will be when God completes his work of holiness in me. It says that he who has begun will complete it according to the day of Jesus Christ. It was back there in the beginning of the chapter. So in Paul's eyes, keep it fresh, keep it loving. Love God and love one another. But you cannot have heart without head. You cannot have love without knowledge, because that's just sentimental gush, as Eugene Peterson puts it in The Message. And it may even mean doing completely the wrong thing. You might do something because it feels right. Have you heard that phrase? If it feels right. If it feels right, well, your feelings can betray you. Your feelings can drive you way down the wrong track. If it feels right, think again. Consider what you're doing. It's dangerous when it comes to seeking to love God. The Bible tells us how to show our love for him, and we're fools if we do something else. And Jesus said in John chapter 14 verse 11, if you love me, obey what I command. But the flip side is just as bad. Head without heart. Can you think of that? Your head but not your heart. Knowledge without love. Knowledge without love leads to arrogance and nitpicking. You know, it's totally out of place for us. But Paul says that our focus should be seeking to love more and more. And you cannot love too much, can you? You cannot love too much. You can love unwisely, but you cannot love too much. Your love must be anchored in to knowledge of God and what he wants for you. So we need both. I've got this song in my mind. It's I half remember, a line from a Van Morrison song that contains the wonderful line, until my heart can do my thinking and my head begins to feel. Apologies to Van Morrison if I've misremembered it. But maybe there's something of a fusion there, and head and heart have to become one God-praising self. Amen. May God lead us as we seek to do that. Amen.